Mission, we have a liftoff.
The roll program is in on time.
NASA's Voyager 1 spacecraft is back.
Voyager 1, launched in 1977, has traveled farther than any human-made object in history. For nearly 5 decades, it has beamed back invaluable data about the outer planets, the edge of our solar system, and the interstellar space beyond. As it drifted over 15 billion miles from Earth, its instruments became humanity's most distant eyes and ears. It had long passed the heliopause, the boundary where the sun's influence fades and the interstellar medium begins. But now, a chilling new final transmission from this aging spacecraft has sent shockwaves through the scientific community, confirming what many had feared for years. The cosmos, it seems, is not silent, and Voyager 1 might have heard something it was never meant to hear. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. The signal arrived faint but unmistakable, embedded within routine data packets during one of its standard weekly communications. At first, the data appeared scrambled, distorted in a way not typical of transmission decay or instrument failure. Engineers assumed another technical glitch had occurred, something that had become more common in recent years. But as NASA's Deep Space Network ran repeated diagnostics and cleaned up the garbled message, patterns began to emerge. The patterns weren't random. They were structured, deliberate, repeating at odd intervals that didn't match any known cosmic phenomena. Voyager 1 had recorded a transmission, but not one it had sent. It was something else. Something that responded. At first glance, the data resembled natural interstellar phenomena, pulsars, quasars, cosmic microwave background radiation, but it deviated too far from expected behavior. The modulation was inconsistent with the known emissions of any astronomical body. More chillingly, the frequency of the signal appeared to shift slightly over time, almost as if it was tracking the spacecraft itself. The implications were staggering. For decades, Voyager 1 had floated silently in a realm presumed to be empty, cold, and lifeless. This signal suggested otherwise. Something had noticed it. Scientists were quick to deny any conclusion that veered into speculative territory. However, the structure of the transmission left little room for comfort. It exhibited characteristics of intelligent design, not in the mystical sense, but in the raw, statistical manner used to determine signal origins. The signal pulses displayed mathematical symmetry and contained frequency gaps that mirrored prime numbers, often a benchmark in the search for non-random, possibly intelligent signals. Voyager 1 hadn't just picked up background noise, it had received something precise and targeted. The implications of this reality began to spread through confidential channels at NASA, then leaked out to affiliated research institutions and inevitably to the public. What made the event truly unnerving was its suddenness. Voyager 1 had traveled for over 45 years without encountering anything like this. The idea that it would suddenly receive a structured signal after decades in interstellar silence challenged assumptions about deep space. Was it mere coincidence? Or had the spacecraft reached a threshold, a boundary, beyond which lay something entirely different, something watching, waiting? Theories erupted within the scientific and speculative communities. Some believed Voyager 1 had crossed into a region of space inhabited or monitored by an unknown civilization, one advanced enough to detect and respond to the weak nuclear-powered transmissions of a 1970s spacecraft. Others suggested the signal could be a natural anomaly, unlike any previously cataloged, perhaps originating from an exotic stellar object or an unknown interstellar mechanism. But even those clinging to natural explanations were troubled by the level of complexity in the signal. Whatever its source, it didn't fit within any familiar framework. As analysts continued parsing the signal, a terrifying hypothesis began to form. Portions of the transmission resembled fragments of Voyager's own signal structure. It was as though the entity, or force, had mimicked Voyager's voice. This wasn't simple reflection or echo. It was intelligent mimicry, reproducing the modulation, timing, and even telemetry patterns. It knew Voyager. It had listened, and it had chosen to respond in a way the spacecraft, and by extension humanity, could understand. The team at NASA responsible for deep space telemetry faced an unprecedented dilemma. They had received a message, but they didn't know what it meant. Was it a greeting, a warning, a test? And perhaps more pressingly, should they respond? The decision not to reply was quickly made. No signal was sent back. Voyager 1 was never equipped for two-way communication of this nature, and any transmission would take over 22 hours to reach the craft, by which time the situation could have changed entirely. But even in silence, humanity had already made its presence known, decades ago, when Voyager 1 carried with it the Golden Record, a time capsule of Earth's culture, languages, and music. The Golden Record had been designed with hope, meant to introduce humanity to any potential extraterrestrial intelligence it might encounter. Few had ever truly expected it to be found, let alone answered. But now, with Voyager 1's latest transmission, the world was forced to consider whether that cultural greeting had finally reached an audience. If it had, the consequences could be profound. Earth was no longer an unknown. Its signals, probes, and planetary fingerprints had been seen. The final veil of isolation in the cosmos had been lifted. One unsettling element of the transmission was the presence of what appeared to be a data dump. An enormous burst of binary information far exceeding the bandwidth capacity of Voyager's systems. This flood of data didn't correspond to any known format. It wasn't just noise or gibberish. It had weight, structure, and content, though indecipherable. Experts speculated it could be a reply to the Golden Record, a sort of return message encoded in a medium far beyond current human understanding. But that possibility raised further questions. Why now? Why Voyager 1 and not Voyager 2, which was still operational but hadn't received the same signal? Was the entity or phenomenon selective in its interaction? Further analysis revealed another haunting detail. The moment the signal began, Voyager 1's power systems experienced an unexplainable surge. This wasn't a simple radiation spike or hardware anomaly. It was as if the spacecraft had been energized by an external source, brought to heightened awareness just long enough to capture and transmit the message. Then, just as suddenly, the systems began to deteriorate. Instruments started shutting down. Communication became erratic. Within days, the craft ceased transmission entirely. After nearly 5 decades of loyal service, Voyager 1 went silent, its last act being the delivery of a message from the unknown. What troubled scientists most was not Voyager's silence, but the context. The signal had come, and then the spacecraft had died. Had it been shut down deliberately? Was the message a final gift, or a final warning? And if it had been a warning, what were the consequences of ignoring it? Voyager 1's trajectory was a lonely path into darkness, but Earth's position was fixed and vulnerable. The probe had reached out into the unknown, and something had answered. Now, Earth was left to wonder what that answer truly meant. Speculation grew as word of the transmission leaked. Government agencies denied knowledge. Independent scientists called for transparency. Some proposed that the signal might contain coordinates, astronomical markers pointing to the source's location. Others believed it could be an invitation to communicate further, or a test to gauge humanity's readiness. But the darker theories took hold as well. What if the signal was a reconnaissance probe of its own? What if Voyager 1 had functioned as a beacon, revealing Earth's presence to an entity that now knew where to look? Astronomers began scanning the region of space from which the signal might have originated. No unusual objects were visible in the vicinity. No disturbances in the cosmic microwave background or spectral anomalies in nearby stars. Whatever had sent the message was hiding or was undetectable using current instruments. The silence that followed Voyager 1's last transmission became deafening. It wasn't just a loss of contact. It was a moment of existential reflection, a realization that humanity might not be alone and might never have been. The scientific community found itself at a philosophical crossroads. If intelligent life existed beyond Earth and had responded to Voyager 1, then everything known about humanity's place in the universe had changed. But the message had been opaque, undeciphered, and ultimately silencing. The nature of first contact had always been imagined with excitement, curiosity, or even hope. But this encounter, if it could be called that, had brought fear instead. The fear of the unknown. The fear of a presence watching from the dark. The fear that humanity had finally been noticed and might not be ready for what comes next. Even among the most optimistic researchers, unease lingered. Voyager 1's final message was too structured to ignore and too mysterious to dismiss. It was not a declaration of friendship, nor was it a declaration of hostility. It was simply a signal. but the abrupt shutdown of Voyager 1 in its wake cast a long shadow. Whether accidental or intentional, the spacecraft's silence carried a chilling symbolism, as if the cosmos had spoken and then closed the door. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us? What are your thoughts on Voyager 1's final transmission? What do you expect happened? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.